For our next little set of queries, we're going to be using the choose function. And our scenario here is our boss would like to see invoice information from the AP database. We need to display the invoice number, invoice date, total invoice amount, and terms ID. But instead of showing the numeric terms ID, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, they would like 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days to display, which is actually a little easier to understand than the numbers 1 through 5. Also, the boss only wants to see information where the balance is greater than 0. And I think we've used something similar to this. So I'm going to copy this first little part here. So use AP is correct. We want the invoice number. Then we want the invoice date. And then we want the invoice total. And then after our invoice total, that is where the terms ID would go. But we are going to display 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, etc., instead of the numbers 1 through 5. So we have to use a choose here. The column that we are going to be looking at is terms ID. So that's what you give the choose function first, is the column you're looking at. And then if terms ID has a 1, it's going to grab 10 days and display it. If terms ID has a 2, it's going to grab 20 days and display it. For a 3, it's 30 days. And then we've got 60 days and 90 days. So these are positional. And we're going to give it an alias of net due. So it's looking at terms ID. And if it's a 1, it retrieves this. It retrieves 20 days for a 2, 30 days for a 3, 60 days for a 4, 90 days for a 5. Okay, and all of this is coming from the invoices table. And we wanted a balance greater than 0, so this is where we have to put that little formula. Invoice total minus payment total minus credit total greater than 0. And now we're going to run this. And if we look in that last column, we should notice that it's now displaying the text for the net due instead of the term numbers 1 through 5. And we're going to take our little closing comment down. And the next little scenario that we're going to look at, which requires the choose function, is the boss would like a listing of employee IDs and the project names they are working on. The information is in the project table, and the project table is in the examples database. And if we look in the examples database, and we look at the tables, and we take a look at projects, you'll see that all we've got is project number and employee ID. Project number 1 is the marketing call system. Project number 2 is the AP system. Project 3 is warehouse tracking. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the choose function, and then we are going to retrieve the rightmost character, which is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, or a 5. So it is helpful if you display what's in projects. So I'm just going to quick use examples and show you how that is set up. Okay, so what we're going to do is retrieve this very last character. And if it's a 1, 2, 2, 3, or 4, we have specific values. For a 5, which in our system doesn't currently exist, we would actually display NA. Okay, and we're going to display the names of the projects and the employee numbers. Okay, so it is helpful to kind of look at the data so you understand what we're doing. So for this query, I'm going to keep use examples. And I'm going to keep from projects. And I'm going to change my select. So what I want first is the employee ID. Then I need to choose the project number, but I only want that rightmost character. So I'm going to use the right function on the project number, and that will subscript in or substring in from the right. And I'm going to grab the first character on the right. Okay, and if that value is a 1, then they are working on the marketing call system. If the value is a 2, they are working on the AP system. If the value is a 3, it is warehouse tracking. The value is a 4, it's the sales rep earnings system. And if it's a 5, it's not applicable. And we're going to give this column an alias of project name. Okay, so it's going to substring in, grab that last number, and we're going to use that number to display the correct project name. So I'm going to go ahead and execute. And now we know what employees are working on the various projects. So I'm going to hit save and move my closing comment down.